drive us. The ideology of progress, this is why I have sometimes am skeptical, not about technology, the mastery and the geniuses that work in that field, but how technology and science as a subset of our economic ideology can create exactly the conditions that you're describing and that journalist has exposed.
All right, y'all. So we got Russell Brand here saying a lot of things. Now, it is going to make sense. It certainly is going to make sense. And I'm not saying that he's not already making sense. He just has a very in-tuned way of breaking things down. And I just like that he goes into situations that a lot of people don't talk about. Obviously, they tried to cancel him last year about some women, and I never heard anything about it again. I think what ended up happening was we had the Middle East issue happen. And I just feel like after that, I never heard about it again. So maybe he was hovering near the truth somewhere.
Your ideology permits that, then what kind of ideology is that? What kind of unconsciousness are we living in? It's not an awakened culture. And all of the discourse around, like, how we treat one another as individuals and progressivism culturally in domestic territories, hey, people should be allowed to do this and that, it's a nonsense. Right. If that is permitted, not only permitted, required. It's a requirement. You cannot have that economic model without that price being paid. And as a culture, whether it's me as an individual or our entire culture, we've accepted that contract. We've accepted those terms.
Well, we have in some areas of our life for sure. Hopefully people haven't done that in their interpersonal, intimate relationships, but we certainly have in the way we communicate with others.
Well, I'll tell you this. Joe Rogan is one of those who had accepted a lot of things. There's old footage of, and look, he's growing, right? So that's good, right? But there's old footage of Joe Rogan really being all about the climate change issue and, just all these other different issues. But I guess with age comes wisdom. And plus, we're dealing with new territory that we weren't paying attention to back in the day, like early 2000s and things like that. Now, when it comes to even climate change, it's the way we communicate these things or how they're communicated to us. Like these two are saying about communication. I'm all about keeping the earth clean, the environment clean, recycling and, cleaning your property. I'm even more about turning some soil, getting some fertilizer in there. Of course, I don't have a farm. I would love to live on a farm, but I'm all about that. There's a real ecosystem of this planet, the way it was designed, that if we actually respected it, oh my God, we could do big things, right? But the way climate change and all of that type of fake responsibility that they bestow upon us is given to us in this virtue signal type. If you want to be a good person, don't drive a car. Like, come on, all right, yo. like I gotta get to work, okay? Now it's just a bit much, And so that's the thing. It's like everything was turned into how good are you, And almost like a social credit score, if you will.
We've certainly accepted like very bizarre ways of communicating online. And sometimes that bleeds out into real life, like where someone talks to people in the real world as if they're on Twitter and they get bashed. Yeah. Like you see that sometimes. I think it's a very strange time where I don't think people have a lot of faith right now in institutions, and I don't think they have a lot of faith in authority. I don't think
right, and that can go one of two ways. Okay, let's just break that part down. I'm gonna keep it real. I definitely don't have faith in a leader. No, I have faith in God. Y'all know when I talk about this, I do talk about like the God. Y'all know I believe in God, right? So I have faith in God, but people will let you down. And by the way, guys, if you like the videos I've been making, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. I just like to talk about different aspects of things that are happening in our world right now, our government, just how things are moving. But there's infrastructure that I don't trust, like the media. And you don't trust it either because you're watching me. Thank you. We've been propagandized for so long. And I'll give you one example is, the 20-year Iraq war, the Middle East war, like we were there for 20 years, trillions of dollars, lives lost, lives broken. Our veterans are not the same, right? And for what? Just to have the Taliban still in power? Wow.
They really believe that there is someone who is wiser than them, that has a grand plan, that's logical, that's workable, where they're looking out for all of us. So I think there's like a feeling of chaos that exists today that I don't think has ever existed in my life like this before.
I feel the same way too, by the way, when he says he doesn't feel like it ever existed in his life. I actually do feel the same way, because I mean, I'm not like, I'm not 70 or anything, right? But it just feels really different right now. I mean, we're at the point in structurally where we have, and we're talking about America here, but like if anybody's listening around the world, they know what America is going through. I mean, it's on the news and stuff about our borders are being wide open, right? So we don't even have that kind of infrastructure. There's all kinds of inflation going on. And every time you try to figure out where it's coming from, they tell you, no, it's just the supermarket, just raising the prices. Like, no, the price of energy has gone up, right? Nobody wants to talk about the true things that are going on in this country. Everybody's just busy lying or gaslighting or virtue signaling, right? And then culturally too, you're telling people that they can be boys and girls at the same time, that everything is racist, like constructed chaos.
Back during like the Bush administration, when they everybody thought Bush was a moron, they still thought there's a good cabinet, and they're following all the checks and balances, even though they're probably extracting too much money, and there's probably a lot of cronyism and a lot of undercover deals and a lot of like no bid contracts with Halliburton and that kind of nonsense. He still thought they have things pretty under control. It's a very solid institution. Nobody believes that now. You see Pete Buttigieg and fucking Kamala Harris, and Biden can't get a sentence out. You're like, this is madness. These people are utter fools. And
even and both ways, like, all right, what he said about the Bush administration, I remember that, at first we were like, oh my God, Bush, but you really thought about them as being cronies. He's absolutely right. Like, as making those kind of deals or whatever. But, at that point in my life too, I really wasn't even thinking about George Bush like that. I was just becoming, I think I was like 18. I just became 18 when he became president. I couldn't vote for him. I was still 17 when it was time to vote for him. And so, and then he was a part of my life until I was about 26 or something like that. Yeah. 25. Yeah. And I mean, at first it was like, oh my God. Right. But like after 9/11, I think that's why I didn't think about him as much as far as, what he was doing in the office, because 9/11 really brought people together. And I'm not saying we need anything like that again, but it did bring people together. So we were living in a different kind of time, even with Obama. Now, a lot of cultural stuff happened with Obama, and I see it very clear today. But this administration, this cabinet, it just looks like a big circus. It does.
These are the people that are running everything. And these are the people that are getting us on the brink of war with Russia. And I don't have any faith in them. And I think most people don't.
I think you're right. And with the that era of the Cheney, Bush, Wolfowitz, Rumsfeld, it felt like, oh, these are the Death Star bods.
Yeah.
What's happening is there's this risen up military industrial complex, Rand Foundation ideologues from the Republican right, who were the sanctioned baddies back in those days, are trying to profit from the colonization of the Middle East. It's part of a new American project. We sort of understood it. But from where I'm coming from, it was somehow recognizable. And 1 million people went on a march to prevent that war taking place, because they knew there were no weapons of mass destruction, which we now know to be the truth. And as you say, now the figures that are in that place are sort of posing as the good guys, like affable and avuncular presidents and sort of friendly people of, like, that across the identitarian spectrum that's meant to feel inclusive and progressive.
They're wrapping themselves up with progressive identity politics and then promoting a war.
Yes, exactly. Can you think of a bigger tossed salad? Right? Like, that's exactly what's happening, right? So it's like, what the heck? Okay, so all right, like how they even broke all that down. But to be honest, with the WMDs thing, I didn't know that immediately. I just remember being confused as to why we were going to war with Iraq, because I had heard Saudi Arabia. I did hear Saudi. I remember hearing Saudi Arabia first. So I was just confused as to where we were in the Middle East and why. And I just was afraid to ask questions about it because I didn't want to look dumb. So I just kind of just moved on. Of course, later on, I learned like, oh, okay, there weren't weapons of mass destruction, all of that. But yeah, that's the other thing too. Now, when Russell Brand says, but from where I come from, we knew what was going on. There was a million march about, not going into Iraq because there were no WMDs. Yeah, that did happen across the globe. I don't remember any kind of crazy protest in America, drop a comment below and let me know if there was a crazy protest like that to say don't go to war. But I highly doubt that there was, because now afterwards, I'm sure there were protests saying we need to get out. But I highly doubt that there were protests saying don't go to war, because something had literally just happened in our soil and we couldn't see past it. So I don't think we had those protests.
At the same time, it's very wild.
Yeah, it feels like a mask and a veil. Like, this is what's interesting for me, is as we navigate this new and emergent space of being able to present counter narratives, and continually, like all of us now have like experienced, oh, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist, you've joined the alt-right, you're a gateway to this, the dark web, all of that language that grows up around it. Like, this, and I've heard you speak about this obviously a lot, but the truth is that who isn't sympathetic? Anyone that's got a family or loves someone is sympathetic to the idea that people are going to have various types of identity around culture and religious expression and racial expression. And this is a conversation that the whole culture has to be involved in together. What my issue is, I don't think they believe in that stuff. I don't think they care. I don't think that they are creating an agenda to advance the interests of vulnerable people. I think they are using it as a distraction and a veil in order to carry on with the same kind of corporate and financial interests that have always determined what the establishment is. And if there's one thing we can point to in our lifetime, it's that the liberal establishment has become co-opted by the same forces that traditionally we regarded the right to have been co-opted by: military.
So basically,
industrial complex, financial industry. And there's now, like, there's palpable evidence for that. And in order to not acknowledge that that transition's taken place, they're able to keep the cultural conversation going. We care about your right to express yourself and your identity. That's a way of not acknowledging we're just the same. We're pro-war. And now when there's that war, you know, like Jimmy Dore and all those guys did that anti-war march in Washington or whatever, it's like 5,000 people go. Now, I don't know if that's because of the last few years and what the pandemic's done to people accumulating and gathering crowds, or whether people have lost the belief and faith that people can have any impact on politics.
So he goes on and on. He does. I want him to kind of land it before I fully give my commentary on it.
Anymore. There's just now this immersive sense of apathy, this, as you say, loss of trust in institutions and authority. But something extraordinary has happened when people that say that they're, you know, we're the peace and love party, are the party that are advocating for war, won't include some of the complex conditions that have led to this current crisis, which there's clearly a case for, like, you know, NATO's infringement on Russia.
Right. And so we'll even stop there, right? Because he did say a whole lot. So to sum all that up, they keep us in categories so we could keep bickering and trying to socially justice and equalize our way out of some sort of hate around the corner that's going to mess us up or hurt us in some fashion and hurt our feelings and destroy our lives, which is not going to happen. So they keep us fighting ghosts and chains, shifting the goalposts or moving it up, moving it down, whatever. While we're focused on this social justice awareness and my feelings and my rights, the same rights you got. Yeah, you already got them. I don't know. You know, they're starting the wars. You know what I mean? Like, and that is happening. And I went to that march, the Jimmy Dore, the Rage Against the War machine. I went last year, and this year they couldn't even have it because they didn't have enough people to donate money. I don't know what went wrong. We certainly needed more this year than last year. I feel like, when we are looking at two wars. So, but I don't think this was a little while ago that they sat down like this. There's an awakening that's happening. Let us not doom and gloom ourselves all the way through. The fact that you're, like I said, watching this episode, I know that you're part of the people who are waking up, right? So let's just hold on and see. I think good things are coming our way. We just got to fight through a couple more, go through the jungle a little bit more, but I think there certainly is a light in the end.